I spend a lot of time in my working with companies on their software development practice. And I want to start today by talking about agility in general and some of the misconceptions about agility. And then there are a series of risks that you take when you go from a standard plan-driven process toward an agile process. And so we'll talk about those because you need to understand those before you can move in that direction. And then we'll talk about a transition plan for how to move toward agility that tries to minimize those risks. So the first thing we need to do is get some things out of the way. First of all, agility is not binary. It isn't that you are agile or you aren't agile. Every organization has some degree of agility. It may be very slow or may be unpredictable, but you have a process and it has, to some extent, some agility. Agility is also not a milestone. It isn't something that you can set up a plan and say 18 months from now we will be agile. It doesn't create an us versus them. We don't have agile people and not agile people. It really is a continuum. There are companies who are more agile and there are companies who are less agile, but there's a continuum. In addition, you need to think about what it is you need to respond to with agility. Most of the time, we talk about being agile in response to changes in requirements. When our customers want something new, how quickly can we provide that new functionality? But in some industries, it may be more important to be agile in bringing in new help, or agile in how we provide training to our customers, or other sorts of things. So agility isn't always about your software development ability to respond to requirements. Jim Highsmith put it very well when he said, agility is a way of life. It's a way of looking at your process and the way you're doing things that kind of never ends. A lot of people think that agile teams just sit down and write code, and that's actually a very flawed view. Agile teams do produce documentation, though they try to make sure that the documentation they're producing is useful and is done in the most efficient way necessary. Agile teams do plan. They do organize what's going to make some plans for what's going to happen 18 months from now, though those plans may be very vague way out in the distance. There is a plan. And they do manage the project and manage the process. In some ways, agile teams are more disciplined than plan-driven teams. They need to be taking care of managing things every minute of every day. When we talk about agile, there are lots of very specific agile methodologies like Scrum and XP and Lean and those kinds of things. I'm going to talk about agile kind of in the abstract, away from any one of those methodologies, because they have a lot of things that are in common. Primarily, agile methods are focused on feedback. People who are on agile teams are greedy about getting feedback. The idea is something isn't done until you can demonstrate it and somebody else believes you. So they build the process so that they're regularly getting customer feedback, feedback from other people on the team, feedback from the process, whether that's from the build server or from metrics about the process. So they're looking for feedback from everything around them. And they're doing that at regular intervals. It isn't something that we look for the feedback at the end of the project, or we look for the feedback once a year. We look for the feedback every minute of every day. And the reason that we're looking for the feedback is because we want to learn something from it. When I worked in industry, we would gather all of these statistics about how much time we were spending on something so that at the end of the project we could compare planned versus actual. And then we never actually did anything with that. Agile teams look for feedback because they're always looking to do something better. So the fundamental difference between Agile development and plan-driven development is the concept of iterations. Agile teams will be producing customer visible functionality at fixed length, lockstep intervals. And the two keys to that are we produce customer visible functionality. That means something isn't real until the customer can see it. A document isn't a deliverable. Only customer visible functionality counts. And we do this at fixed length, generally very short intervals. So we produce functionality every 2 weeks, or at most every month. That's a fundamental difference in how you approach developing software, and it requires a significant change in the tools, the strategies you use for how you plan, the technical skills of your developers, the management skills of your managers. Everything is different if you're going to produce in iterations. The reason that Agile uses iterations is because of that focus on feedback. If every 2 weeks we can put something in front of the customer and they can say, yeah, you're on the right track, or no, you need to do this a different way. That's really the motivation for feedback, for iterations. But there's also a lot of other benefits of iterations. When you make a plan for a 12-month project, if you have a 10% error in that plan, you are a month and a week late. If I'm making a plan for 10 days and I have a 10% error, I'm off by a day. It's a lot easier to manage around an error of a day than it is to manage around an error of 5 weeks. So if you made estimates with the same amount of error, you'd be better off. But also, we are estimating tasks that are much smaller. So the error in our estimate is going to be much better. They've done studies about accuracy of estimates. And the smaller the number you're estimating, the better your estimates are. It's a lot easier for a human to estimate the difference between 3 and 4 than between 30 and 31. So since we're estimating smaller things, we tend to have better estimates. The iterations also give a rhythm to the project, that you're always kind of doing the same thing. In your 2-week iterations, you know that it starts with planning, and you know about how far you need to be by the end of the week, and you know how things are going to run in the second week. So the project has this kind of rhythm to it. And one of the side effects of that rhythm is that the team learns this is how much we can do in this much time. Everything becomes kind of predictable and comfortable. The other thing that happens when you are estimating in these smaller pieces is we do not have long critical paths in the project. If I'm estimating a plan-driven project that's going to take me 12 months, I have to look at which tasks happen after which other tasks, and I have to do that critical path analysis to be able to figure out which of the things that I need to be really careful to make sure that they don't slip. If I'm delivering, on the other hand, if I'm delivering every 2 weeks or every month, there are surprisingly few tasks that are dependent on other tasks, and in general, you can just leave them to the team, and the engineers will be able to figure out what needs to be done to manage that. So we don't have as much of a problem of sequential tasks. The big thing that we've done here is that we've changed how we're planning. That we're now doing things in these fixed length intervals